So I feel like we have very similar stories in aspect, like they're very parallel, if you will. No, but they really are. They have a lot of similarities in our health journeys and like how we got to this side of the business and what we're doing.
Yes.
So I kind of want to kick it off there of like, what is your health journey that eventually obviously led you to found Perelell, but take us back to like your mid-20s.
Completely. Well, first of all, I think it's so wild that everyone has a health journey.
Yeah.
It's whether or not we've shared it or whether or not it's reared its head in our lives. But for me, it became very pronounced when I was in my mid-20s. I was a young executive. I had held executive roles at different organizations, went from Google and was, employee number 20 at Who What Wear and really helped build that company over 5 years and became the president, running a large media organization. And I scaled that company across 3 continents. It was a lot for a 20-something.
That's a lot.
I did a lot of coaching to put some proverbial rings on my tree because I also suffered from crazy imposter syndrome, and we can get into that. But at any rate, I was living that girl boss life, wake at 5:30 a.m., do my soul cycle, drink my lemon water, high intensity workouts all day long, back to work. Coffee. And I started feeling pretty bad physically, and I didn't pay attention. I just pushed through it. Yeah. And of course, life has a way of forcing you to slow down. I was being honored on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, and I was in...
Go girl. I was dream of every girl boss in their 20s.
It was what it was.
I know it is.
Yeah, like, it is. So at any rate, I was like the total archetype. Yeah. And I was in Israel actually because they were doing a big ceremony and trip there to honor the people. And I broke out in shingles.
So did I. And this is where I related to you.
No way.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Where were yours?
Mine were wrapped around my torso, only one side, of course, which is telltale sign. You as well?
Back of my neck.
Oh my God.
Horrible. Like the grossest thing I've ever seen when I look at the pictures of them.
So sorry. So
it was
painful.
awful.
So painful.
Awful.
Thank God we didn't get in our eyes. I mean, I've heard that can go real south. And so that really set me off on my journey to understand what is happening in my body. I'm so suddenly lethargic. I wasn't me, and I knew it. And then this was a very pronounced way of saying, hey, you need to slow down. And I think that's really interesting is that our bodies are so smart, and sometimes our brain can override it until our body just says, slams on the brakes. And that was the moment for me. So after seeing numerous doctors, over 9 months of seeing, I think I saw over 7 different doctors. Oh my gosh. I finally got a diagnosis that I had an autoimmune disease and that my thyroid was compromised and all these different things. And it really opened my eyes, one, to the fact that, wait a minute, I'm very fortunate. I am a white woman who lives on the west side in LA, and I am fully aware of that privilege and also the access that I have to great medicine, and that is not something that I take that for granted. But the fact that even me, it took that long to get an answer to what was happening in my body made me acutely aware of the fact that this isn't just my story.
No.
As I started to share what I was going through, I learned that so many other people suffer without answers for years. Endometriosis can take up to 10 years to get a diagnosis. And that is a hell of a lot more painful than what I was dealing with. And so at any rate, it really opened up my eyes to how little we know about our bodies and how little the medical community knows about women's bodies.
So little.
Like, it's insane. Not so long ago, we, women of childbearing potential, so hi, that's us, were omitted from clinical trials for the better part of over 20 years, dating back to the 1970s through the 90s. And it wasn't until 2016 that the National Institutes of Health actually recognized that sex should be a biological variable and that we are not, in fact, small men, and that we do metabolize things differently, and that diseases disproportionately affect us differently and show up differently. And even as recently as, last year, funding patterns still disproportionately favor male diseases. And we're left to shoulder these repercussions of years, of misdiagnosis and lack of clarity and support.
It's really wild because I feel like this, to any degree, like obviously there's a spectrum, but there are so many people in my life, in my DMs, that have this like mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, weird health shit. Everything's going haywire.
Yeah.
No one can get a diagnosis. Like for me, I had shingles.
Yeah. Tell me about you.
I was working in sales and trading, so very intense. Like
Gnarly.
same thing, girl boss. Like I was in the 5:30 a.m. berries. Like it was crazy. Very different life. Everything was fast paced, and I was dealing with a ton of anxiety and digestive health issues. And I remember one day feeling something on my neck and being like, is that a bug bite? Like, it was over the summer. So I thought like, oh, I got bit at the beach. Yeah. And then I had my coworker like take a picture of it. I was like, is it a pimple? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I have photos on my phone of it just like getting progressively worse every day. Oh, God. And I go to a doctor because eventually I'm like, I need to, like, something's happening here.
Yes.
And the doctor's like, you have shingles? And I remember telling my boss and he's like, okay. And I was like,
what?
I don't know if I'm supposed to be here.
And I don't think this is normal
and
for
he was
someone
like,
my age.
I think you're fine. And I was like, okay, no. I straight up went,
stop.
This is a different time.
Stop.
I went from the desk to the hospital to get my appendix taken out.
No, you did
at
not.
5:15. I left the desk. I went home. I packed a bag. I walked over to my sister's apartment who lived in my building. I knocked on her door and I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. Can you take me?
I mean,
I went to the hospital, had my appendix out before midnight.
I have so many questions. A, like, how do we not create environments for people today where that is normalized? And secondly, I mean, I'm so sorry.
I mean, it is what it is. It's like, you know, it's built character, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think it taught me how to navigate certain things
completely
as a manager, as an employee, whatever it might be. But same to you, I was then seeing so many doctors under the sun getting put on antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotics because I had SIBO.
Yeah.
No one could figure out what was going on. Finally, I saw a functional medicine practitioner and I had mercury poisoning.
No.
And they were like, I think this is the culprit of everything you're experiencing because it's allowing for this bacterial growth. It's allowing for the shingles to be present in your body. Wow. So I did this whole chelation therapy. Like it's honestly crazy when I think back on this time of my life.
That is so insane. I have a friend who also got mercury poisoning.
Crazy.
Similar story, but also how long it took her to get that answer. And it was a functional medicine physician that ultimately helped her connect all the dots. You know, our medical system is very siloed in terms of how we look at whole body support. And
it's so siloed. And I think then when we add in the women's health, specifically like reproductive health, like I've been on this journey of PMDD and in really intense periods and like throwing up, my cramps are so bad and trying to figure out. And I go to my OB and she's like, all right, I want to put you on an IUD. And I'm like, but aren't there maybe other things we should be doing first? Tests or
and
like
it's like my heart
trials?
goes out to all of these physicians because there's two challenges for them, right?
Yeah.
One, there's the systemic challenge of how much time they have for patient care,
right,
and the way our whole insurance system has a chokehold essentially on the type of care that you receive.
Yep.
And then secondly, not to the fault of the physician, but the fact that they have so little information to even work with.
They're not being taught it.
Well, they're not being taught it. You know, it goes back to medical school. And even then, it's because these medical schools just don't even have the information to teach. They just don't know. And so you just start to peel the proverbial onion and see how complicated this whole issue is. And this is how it manifests.
Yeah. Where does it start, though? Like, I know we're not going to fix it right here, but like, is it research? Like, is that what we need more of? I kind of believe that's
the way
where
that I have
start.
Approached it, because I've decided to dedicate my life and my center of gravity to pushing up this mountain and creating change, is that the bottom of the pyramid is only when we have that foundational knowledge of what is happening in our bodies can we therein teach others how to support it and also create therapies and solutions to support us better. And so the way that I see it is, yes, it is very much rooted in research. And there are some other inputs that obviously impact that. One is equipping researchers with the ability to proof things so that they can even get meaningful grants. I mean, there's a lot of kind of education in the research and medical community just to get to the point where they can get the funding. But to me, it's very much about funding research that supports our understanding of how women's bodies work so that we can therein educate the next generation of not only researchers, but physicians and people that we're getting care from in all modalities, not just Western medicine, but functional medicine practitioners, dietitians, everyone. So they can actually bring that into high-touch patient care and give us support and diagnosis faster. I mean, women are diagnosed later than men for over 700 diseases, including Alzheimer's, which is extremely risky.
Yeah.
And women today will live 25% more of their life in poor health compared to men, which adds up to 75 million years of life lost per year.
Holy shit.
It's
I mean, I believe it when I just talk to
crazy.
my girlfriends, how
It's
everyone has
crazy.
something going on.
Yes.
I also feel like this conversation can get so murky in a sense because you don't want to, and I don't want to err on the side of like, well, I don't believe doctors because of the political climate right now can go a little wellness and then suddenly we're like on the far right. But I think there's a world where these two things can coexist together.
Absolutely.
Like, I am so grateful for modern medicine, and I think we need to improve the way that we are treating reproductive health.
Completely.
And in general, the knowledge around how a female's body works.
And by the way, there is a wealth of knowledge that we do have.
Yeah.
And a lot of physicians do take that into practice. And there are requirements for those that are board certified to do continuing education and the like, but we can push harder. And I think a lot of that obviously was put into tumult in terms of our understanding, respect, all those things with, you know, what happened over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think two things can be true. And that's the opportunity we have ahead of us is how do we fund this research? How do we equip this next generation of physicians with the knowledge that they need to take care of us better? But also, we can't do anything unless we all know that this is an issue. And everyone's walking around wondering, why am I not getting a diagnosis? Well, let me tell you, it's because we don't know.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And we need to fund it. And, you know, that is very much something that is being dismantled currently. But the hope is that it's also going to be rebuilt. And how do we ensure that women's health is prioritized in that conversation? You know, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, take us back. So you have shingles.
Yes.
How do you then end up leaving? Were you still working in the corporate world at this time?
I was, yes. And it set me, I had no idea that lovely case of shingles would change my life actually for the better. It changed my life for the better. I had another job opportunity at the time that was incredibly amazing, dream job I'd always dreamt about, decided not to pursue it, and really thought to myself, well, what do I need to do? And when I dug in and connected with all my different, you know,
Healers.
my care team, my healers, you know, but I had like a, you know, an endocrinologist. I had a functional medicine doctor. Again, I was very lucky to have a care team, but they told me I needed to do 3 things immediately if I wanted to take care of myself. And I'm so grateful that I listened to their advice. One was they asked me to cut gluten. Easy peasy. I live in LA. Woe was me. Like, that was so simple to do. Secondly, they put me on a synthetic thyroid hormone, which I took for a long time. I actually am now in remission because of all my lifestyle changes. And then third, I changed my life. Like, I reduced my stress. To look at me at that time and say, you need to reduce your stress. I was like, first of all, how insulting. It's not that easy. Like, you do not understand the weight that I carry every day. And again, I will be the first to admit, so self-imposed.
Yeah, but it's
irregardless,
I was the same way. They're like, slow down. I'm like, fuck you. I can't slow down.
I can't slow down.
How?
But like, be less stressed. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
But I really locked into that because I had to change. I was so rigid. I was so wound up. I was like, you know, I always tell my team, I'm like, do you want to be the tree or the water? You know, the tree, when it gets, you know, blown with wind, will snap and break. But water will flow around it. So how do you be like water? And that, you know, through my coaching and everything that I was doing at the time, it made me recognize, okay, I do have to change. That's when I started meditating. It's when I started changing the way that I take care of my body, not doing Soul Cycle every morning at 5:30. Really helped. You know, I really prioritized that. And then I also thought about the work environment I was in. It's like, you know, I'm pretty sure I probably only get one go around. Is this what I want to be doing? Do I want my life to be rooted in this culture? And I really thought about what my next move needed to be. And I did make a career change after that, a big one. And that ultimately set me on my way to make it clear that, you know what, I've built a lot of brands and companies for other people. What happens if I do that myself? And that, there was a lot of therapy before that because I didn't think I was worthy. Again, the imposter syndrome reared its head. But ultimately, it led me to founding my business, Perelell. And I look back, and while that was a challenging path and road, and as I was in the thick of it, I was like, how is this all making sense? It snapped into focus the second that I keyed in on what I needed to do.
Right.
And that was start this business.
I mean, as I said, like I deeply resonate with the story because I
Yes.
got all the same things from the doctor, minus the thyroid hormone, but
Yeah.
like slow down.
Yep.
You need to meditate. You need to journal.
Like
and at the
insulting.
time I was like, I hate you.
Yes.
And now it's what I tell everyone else to do.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm that annoying bitch.
Same.
But it really did change. I mean, I still have so much to work on, and I teeter between going back to some of my old antics
do
because it's
too.
where I feel the most comfortable and
do
like I
too.
thrive in chaos.
Yep.
So like trying to slow myself down to be
Yeah.
comfortable with stillness is really difficult,
It's so hard.
but it makes such a difference.
It does. And I think there's something actually really interesting about people like us that have a hard time
Yeah.
being still. A couple weeks ago, it was spring break. I was home with my kids, and my husband said, "Why don't you just sit down?" And I was like, I have so much to do. Do you not understand? Like, I have to do this. I have to book that. He's like, just sit. And he's like, it says so much more about you that you can't sit. Like, why can't you be still? You're worthy of it. You can be still. And I think it's because our generation was raised with the fact that women were finally in the workplace. Women
Yep.
finally got credit cards. You know, my mom built an incredible career for herself. She bought a house by herself. Like, she did so much. And so I think, at least for me, it might be looking at that and saying, like, look what we did. I want to live up to that. I want to do more. I want to keep moving because look
Yeah.
how much progress we have. But again, we've all taken it too far at the cost of our own health.
We also were very much in the girl boss era of our 20s. How old are you?
30, I'll be 38 next month.
Okay, so we're like the same
Yeah.
age-ish, and
Yeah.
I feel like so much of our age growing up in our 20s was like, you have to go hard in the gym, you have to go hard at
Have
work,
it
you have to
all.
go hard at night, like no sleep.
Yes.
And that's what we were sold as, like we were supposed to be doing that.
Completely.
And
And
that's
it was
how,
the narrative we showed on social media.
Totally.
Constantly busy, constantly going.
constant. I joke about this. I said this on social media, and like so many people resonated, but I oftentimes say I wish I could live inside my husband's brain because it's just like, I think
Same.
peaceful.
So peaceful.
And the other night, I came downstairs and I was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And he was
Yeah.
like, "I don't know." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know." And I was like, "Are you watching it? You're not on your phone?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." And I was like, "But what is it?" And he's like, I don't know." And I was like, "Well, did you put it on?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "How did we get here?" And he's like, "I opened Netflix and like it was just the top movie, so I just clicked it." And I was like, I am so jealous and want so badly to live in a brain that can just not care and chill and just throw something on. Like in my
Yes.
head, I'm like, but you're wasting time.
Yes.
Don't you have a list of things that you want to watch?
Yes.
And if you have this time to watch something, aren't you like trying to play cat? Like I feel
Or trying to make sure that this little time you have, that it's the
the most
best thing you
efficient.
could possibly watch.
It's what I work on with my
Yes.
therapist all the time
Same.
of like
Constantly.
being obsessed with efficiency.
Yep.
And I think it's really easy to relate to if you understand, and really easy to be like, what are you talking about if you
Yeah.
don't? But if you are also obsessed with efficiency, it's hard to rewire your brain to allow yourself to just be.
To just be. It's so, I
Yeah.
mean, that's why meditation for me has been so powerful.
Yep.
But I have to do it in the morning.
Same.
I actually
Otherwise it doesn't
did
get
a
done.
Vedic meditation retreat. Was that 2 years ago?
Interesting.
Wow, time goes by quickly. And it's really based on this premise that you have to sit and meditate twice a day. And
Was
It
it for
doesn't-
Ziva?
what?
What was the program?
It was through actually someone who sits on our Perelell panel. Her name's
Oh,
Patty
okay.
Quintero. She's incredible. Wow. So I did it with her. It
Mm-hmm.
was incredible, but also it made me realize this is not, for this chapter of my life, I can't sit twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do it in the morning.
Yeah.
But it completely recalibrates my energy for the day. Do you find that with your, I know you're journaling, you're
I
really into
journal.
your journaling.
Yeah, I journal. I used to meditate like
Mm-hmm.
2 times a day for 20 minutes. Not
so
in
that's
this
same thing
chapter
as
of my
TM.
life. Yeah,
They're the
basi-
same
yeah.
thing.
But now I'm really trying to re-implement 10 minutes in the morning. And just the past, I mean, you're catching me on day 2. I'm on a week of no scrolling.
Good for you.
And
wait, what does that look like? Tell me more.
Like if I open the app, it's only to go to my page, to upload, to respond to comments, to be in my DMs. I'm not allowed to look at other people's stuff.
Ooh, I love this.
I'm doing it for 1 week to just like reset my brain, because for me, my job is so tied to my social media. So I open my phone to do something, but with ADHD and the addictiveness of social media, I end up in a black hole and I don't know how I got somewhere.
I get it.
And then I'm being flooded with other people's information, other people's days, dopamine hit after dopamine hit, feeling less than, because it's also my job. So I'm comparing
those
to
are
everything.
also normal things to feel, especially with someone living your life online. It's tough.
So I've been doing that, but also now that it's nice out, I'm starting my mornings. I wake up before the kids, and I swear by that for myself.
I love
I'm starting my mornings walking my dog, which has been my husband's job historically. But just being outside, like that changes everything for me. And I really believe, and that's why I like to wake up before the kids, is to have that start of my day, because I do believe it sets the tone.
Yes. Otherwise, you're playing dodgeball all day. You know, your kids are coming at you, your employees, whatever you're doing.
Right.
And you need something where it can be you first, setting the tone, setting the energy.
Yeah.
I actually sometimes find that walking my dog is a very meditative experience.
Yes. Agreed. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
He's very leash reactive, so oftentimes it's like I want to scream. But sometimes it's
Same
meditative.
boat. No dogs out at 6 a.m.
Yes, exactly. That's why I like it.
But yeah, I know it's like finding those moments though where you can be really mindful, whether it's journaling or meditation or walking your dog or something where you're not being reactive. Is such a place of power to start your day from.
Huge. So when you decided to go on this journey, how did that then lead to you founding Perelell?
Yes. So it wasn't so binary. You know, I had taken on a role with Urban, running Free People, all the beauty, wellness, activewear division. I was working bi-coastally, which was not ideal as a pregnant and later new mom. Yeah, no. Not great. But at any rate, so I was there. I knew I needed to start something. As I mentioned, I did a lot of therapy and finally realized, like, no, I've got to do this. I have a very unique background, unique experience. I have a strong perspective. I love to build brands that people crave. And I felt there was a gap. I was this new millennial mom and felt failed by all the brands on the market. Most of the mom brands that I saw or had access to treated motherhood as this kind of like pink wash, rah mama sorority vibe. And I was like, that's not it. Like, I'm a grown-ass woman. I am a mother, but there is still so much more of me. Just because I am a mom doesn't mean I'm only a mom, although I love being a mom.
Two things can be true.
You know, I'm not getting like the mom haircut, getting the mom car. You know, I think our generation has changed. We've pushed back on that. I was like, where are these brands that are talking to me? With me at the center? You know, I think that's really important. You know, like make a brand for my kid, but make it about them. But when you're making a brand for me, it needs to be in service of me as a mother. And so it was really to me, it was like, that's what we've got to solve first.
I'm loving right now, like specifically the past few years. I mean, now that I'm a mom, obviously my eyes are more open to it. And especially with the work I do, I'm in conversation with many, but I feel like there are finally brands that are like, let's talk about real motherhood.
Yes, let's real.
Let's get into it.
Oh my God.
It's not pretty.
Yes,
it's great. And it's ugly.
Yes.
And it's messy.
But two things can be true. And I think previous generations were so scared to tell us of the realities. You know, I think of the grandmothers around me. They were shamed. They couldn't admit the realities of what they were going through. And I think that, again, like, we can say that motherhood is so hard and it is so messy, but also it is so beautiful. And it has broadened my aperture on life. It has allowed me to see things with more depth and more clarity. And everything important snaps into focus and everything that's not important fades into the background. And there's nothing like that perspective you get when you become a mom. And that is a superpower. It really is. And I think it's beautiful that so many brands see this now and are honoring that and creating space, again, for these two truths.
Yeah. And I do love, you talk about this, how you just said, like, it immediately puts things in perspective. You're immediately aware of what's important and what's not important and how you spend your time and what matters to you and who you spend your time with.
Yes.
And that's why I love Perelell's campaign of Birth of a Mother, because you become a new human.
Yes. Yes. And it's wild to me because, again, we're out here celebrating the day, you know, Mother's Day, but what is Mother's Day?
Right.
To me, it's honoring that chapter of Matrescence. Have you ever heard the term
Yeah, we
Matrescence?
did a full episode on it.
Okay, great. So you know that Matrescence is the emotional, psychological, physical, and hormonal shift from being a woman to becoming a mother.
Yes, it's
and
one
it
of our
is
top
a
downloaded
seismic
episodes.
shift, you know, coined by Dana Raphael in the 1970s, which I think is just so cool. But at any rate, it's about honoring this shift and the fact that you don't just become a mom. Your identity shifts fully. And let's honor the birth of a mother. You know, the second your first child is born, you are delivered too.
Yeah.
And it sets off this quiet and very seismic shift in who you are and your identity. It cracks you open in a way that you never thought was possible. I mean, the love that I have for my children. I remember when I was pregnant with my second, the whole pregnancy I worried. I'm like, I'm just
terrified.
not going to love this baby.
I did a full episode on it. I was crying about it every day.
Yes, same. I was so worried that I couldn't love my second as much as I loved my first. And guess what? Love them both.
Yeah.
Both the same. But it is just such a beautiful moment in a woman's life. So we created this campaign to honor the birth of a mother, the unfolding of you, that moment in time where you were cracked open, maybe literally, but to become a mother and how that shift occurs in all of us. And it's so beautiful. It really is such a beautiful transformation. And I think so many people are so focused on the baby, the baby. You're a mom because you have a baby. You're a mother because you went through this experience.
Yeah.
And because your perspective has been broadened, and because you have you're not just carrying the world in your arms, but you're carrying it in your heart now. And that's a big responsibility too.
And I love the language around it because I talk about this a lot in terms of postpartum. You know, we care about the birthing person the whole pregnancy.
Yes.
It's like, how are you? How can we help you?
Yes.
Take my seat. Let me hold your door.
Yeah.
And then you birth the baby and it's like, how is the baby?
Yes.
And you
your
are a
chopped liver.
forgotten option. Oh, go to the doctor in 6 weeks. See you never. But like, baby, we need to see you in 2 days and then again in another week and then maybe again in 2 weeks. Like, it's wild, the transition that happens instantaneously by the outside world and from the inside world.
Yes.
And so I talk about this in terms of if you have a postpartum person in your life, like, check in on them.
Yes. Oh my God.
Don't constantly ask for baby
The
updates
baby's
or
fine.
baby photos. Like, the baby's cared for.
Probably fine. Yes.
The baby is fine.
Mom needs help.
Mom needs so much more help.
Yes.
And I think in terms of birth of a mother, yes, the matrescence exists mainly in that first child. But I felt like I was reborn, whatever you want to call it, as a new mom the second time around.
How
I don't know if you resonate with this.
What do you mean by
like,
that?
I feel
Like you went deeper?
and
I get that.
I'm a different mom.
Yes.
With my first, I was so anxious, so controlling, so anal about everything because I was terrified.
Yes,
And
completely.
then I feel when I had my second, I was like, oh, well, this isn't forever.
Completely.
You'll sleep one day.
Yes.
It's fine.
Well, I think
like,
there's also something about, again,
It's lived
there's
experience.
these two tracks. Yeah, lived experience. One, you're assimilating to caring for someone else's life
Yes.
every single second at a magnitude that you can't even really express to someone until you're in it. And then secondly, you're adapting to this new identity of, I am a mom, I'm a caretaker. My whole anchor in this world and compass has been shifted. And like,
Right.
who am I?
What do I
And
talk about?
think-
What do I wear? What do I
Yes.
think of?
Oh my
what
God,
do I
what
care
do I
about?
wear? I'm like, do moms wear this? Like,
No,
I remember
literally.
like that.
The
But
way I
think
show up
what's-
to school is comical sometimes.
Same. 0 Fs given. That's what I'll say. But at any rate, I think what's really interesting, though, is that irregardless of how many children you have, I think what is so powerful is time. More time goes by, we relax into the life.
Yeah.
We relax into the role, and it unfolds, and it shows us, it builds our confidence. It shows us where we do need to maybe put a little bit more focus and emphasis, or maybe where not to. So I think also just the power of time and that experience of becoming a mother is so profound. And to me, the birth of a mother, I'm still being birthed. I've had 2 children. I don't think I'm having any more. But for me, it's like, I'm still unfolding. Like, the mother I am now is only going to grow and evolve and develop as my kids become, 10 and 12 and teenagers and then young adults. Like, it's so beautiful how there isn't quite stasis. Like you're constantly going to evolve. It's really interesting.
I was just talking about this with someone this morning because it was like, well, we're all experiencing it for the first time. Like this is my first time parenting an almost 4-year-old. It will be my first time parenting a 13-year-old. You know, and see, I think about this even when I give my mom grace. I'm like, well, it's her first time parenting a child who has kids.
But isn't that also the beauty and the kicker? Because I think back to like my parents were so wonderful, but also like I gave them such a hard time, and now I give them such grace, and I have even a deeper love for them. Because now I understand what they were going through. They didn't know. They don't have a guidebook.
No, my son the other day was asking me about death, and he's
mine too.
Almost 4, and I'm like, you're too young for this conversation. And my dad happened to be sitting with me, and I turned to my dad, and I'm like, what do I say?
So
and
sweet.
Joe's like this, my husband was there with us, and afterwards he was like, that was such a, like, you reverted to a kid.
Yes.
And I'm like, but I don't know what to do.
Yes, completely.
And it made me realize my parents didn't know what to do. Like, no one has a guidebook.
No one really knows.
And I also think about this, like, when my mom and I would battle a bit after I had the first grandchild on both sides, which was such a blessing and a lot, but
I did too.
a blessing.
Yes, a lot.
In the end. And, you know, navigating boundaries with my mom.
Gosh.
You know, I know a lot of people experience it with their mother-in-law. Mine was with my mom.
Okay.
And it was like, okay, I love you.
Yeah.
I need your help.
Yes.
And I kind of need it to be on my terms.
Completely.
And like, this is how we have to operate now.
Yes.
And
how did you tackle that? Did you tackle it head on and just have the conversation?
We have a very, very open relationship.
That's great.
We can say anything to each other.
Yeah.
A little too much, where sometimes I'm like, I could be nicer. But like, we have a full episode on it.
Kindness is clarity. I mean, talking straight sometimes.
We have a full episode on it where we talk about it. And like, my mom is the most, how do I, like, moldable isn't the right word, because that,
like, adaptable.
Like, if she really takes feedback and tries to change.
I love that.
So when I say certain things, she does listen. Like, there are certain things
she
that
takes it to heart.
Don't have that impact. And then other things where, like, she really does try to change. And I really respect that about her and, like, appreciate. And so when it came to boundaries around being a grandparent, I also had to remember, like, well, this is her first time being a grandparent.
Yeah, they don't know.
Like, she's also being born as a new version of a mom, you know?
And the relationship is completely different, too. I was just reading an article, I believe it was in The Atlantic, about how the relationship for grandparents with grandchildren is quite different than what our parents were raised with. You know, grandparents now have a more active role in child rearing and participation in daily life in a way that was so different than just having fun time with grandma and grandpa and seeing them for little bits of time. And obviously that's cultural and specific to the United States, obviously very different in other cultures and what have you, but irregardless, like, there isn't a model for what being a grandparent looks like today. And I think even for them it's tough. You know, they have to set their boundaries, because how much care do they want to provide? What do they want to be known for? And like, that's something
am I the babysitter?
Am I the babysitter?
Am
I the disciplinarian?
Yes.
Like, so there's all these really interesting dynamics. And again, you like take a step back and you're like, the circle of life is wild. Like, no one really knows what they're doing.
No.
We're all just doing our best with what we have.
Being the parent and the child at the same time is a wild ride of trying to, like, navigate it all. And then it's interesting, what I find fascinating, and my sisters and I always say this, like, I love watching my mom with her sisters and her mom, because they just, like, revert to us.
Yes.
Like, when her and her sisters are together, if they're, like, bickering or fighting, or I, like, see something, I'm like, oh, they're us. Or, like, when she's bitching about her mom, I'm like, oh.
Yes.
Like, I observe her and her sisters being like, can you believe mom? La, 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 la. And I'm like, oh, they do this too.
Yeah.
It's all circle.
It's all circle. I mean, it's also interesting to me too, because a lot of us are having children later in life. Our parents are older.
Yeah.
There is also, not saying it's harder for our generation, but it might be a little trickier, is like, we're also the sandwich generation. Yeah. We're dealing with aging parents. My mother's turning 70 this year, which hit me like a ton of bricks, you know, knowing when my grandmother passed, and, you know, again, this existential question of like, oh my God, like, life goes so quickly. We've been talking about this a lot
this year.
And, you know, it's the fact that, like, my parents are aging, and I'm going to need to be there to support them and navigate that. I watched my mom navigate that with her parents, and then also having young children. It's just hard. Yeah. It's really hard.
We have talked a lot about this, my husband and I, this year.
Really?
Because of a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And it like freaks me out so intensely.
Same.
From a
It's like debilitating
emotional
almost.
way because
Yeah.
I can't fathom.
Same.
And then the layer of a selfish way because I'm like, wait, but I need you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just had to do an
I need
EMDR
you.
session because I was so triggered
Yeah.
about, I mean, I've had a lot of sudden loss in my life,
sorry.
but you know, such is life. And it's about understanding that tension. Like you have to have that tension to appreciate the now and the beauty
Yeah.
of it. So I kind of come back there, but yeah, it's wild. I think a lot of people are starting to go through this, and even over the next 10 years, it's going to be more pronounced for all of us in our late 30s.
Yeah, and I also think my mom and I were talking about this where we were just with them in Florida, and we were all on the beach, and I was watching my dad and my mom and my 2 boys stand by the ocean, and I started crying because I was like,
What a sweet moment.
What a sweet moment. And wouldn't it be so wonderful if one day I get to have that relationship with my boys' kids? And it just felt like very
cry.
meta. No, I was like sobbing on the beach. And I walked down to my husband. He was like, are you good? And I had that. And so I was telling my mom that. And I was like, it's such a gift, that they are so close. Both
It is.
our sets of parents are so close with our children.
Truly.
And I said, isn't it wild if you think about it? Like, Nana knows my kids. One day you could know their kids.
Yes.
And she made the unfortunate realization that I think is kind of what we're talking about of like, as our generations have grown, we're having kids later. And so I think we are this generation that's navigating aging parents because they had us a little older, and young kids because we had our kids a little later.
There's no playbook.
There's no playbook, and it's really confusing. And I know a lot of my community is going through through that as well.
Yeah, completely.
In terms of motherhood, how do you navigate being an entrepreneur and like wearing that business hat? I'm the boss, like co-CEO, co-founder, and I'm a mom to these 2 young kids who like need a lot of me.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Some days it sucks and I'm like, why did I do this? And other days I'm like, thank God, I'm so grateful. This is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hard is what it is. It's hard. And again, going back to this old adage of 2 things can be true. Like, I love having my business. I'm so inspired by what we're doing and really making a difference beyond even the products, just in women's lives.
Yep.
And I love my family. I want to prioritize as much time with them. I want to pour myself in fully and be totally present. And what I think about often is this old adage about the juggling balls. I'm sure you've heard of it, the plastic, the glass. But I am so ruthless in my prioritization. It goes back to the power of snapping into focus, what is a priority and what isn't. And that guides me through my day. You know, there are moments where I cannot drop the ball with my kiddos. I got to be there, got to be fully present, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then there's times where I have to prioritize my business. And I always look at things as for just right now. When I was in baby group, I had this amazing baby group leader with my first, of course, and she would remind us that every stage was for right now.
Wait, sorry, what is baby group? Like a mom's group or something?
It was a mom's group.
Okay.
So essentially it was for new moms. You're put in a group of about 8 to 10 other women that had babies within 4 to 6 weeks of you. And you meet weekly, and there's a facilitator, like, what's going on? You can all share, like, what's working, what's not. It was so tremendously helpful, first of all, to have that. We've actually just launched these for our Perelell subscribers, which is awesome. And they're led by Erica Chitty, who you might know. She's the founder of Loom. But at any rate, it was such a special pace. But the facilitator would remind us, you know, when you're in the depths of like a baby not sleeping or having a challenging, you know, feeding experience, whatever it might be, you're like, it's endless. It's never going to end. They're never going to sleep. They're never going to eat. I'm never going to get my life back. And I always remember what she said, it's for right now.
Yeah.
And so when I find myself in these moments where work might be eating up a lot of my mental and emotional bandwidth for a couple of weeks, I'm like, this is for right now. It's not always going to be this way. Yeah. And I do a good job of recalibrating. And I have strong boundaries. You know, of course, if there's something that's mission critical that needs to be done on off hours, I'm there. It's business. People's livelihoods rely on us. So that's a big responsibility. But also when I'm with my kids, I'm present. I, like you, have been trying to reduce my scrolling or time on Instagram, which really, you know, My husband told me that the average American spends 5 hours a day on their phone.
I would think more.
And I think most people it's more, especially,
Mine is
that's
more.
the average.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I'm like thinking about myself, like that is, and I think he said it adds up to 75 days a year on your phone. And he said this to me like 3 nights ago, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, that's 75 days I could pour into my family, 75 days that I could pour into taking care of myself, nurturing my relationships.
I also will just say,
yeah,
a lot of that is work.
It is work. And
So,
that's what my bark back
you
was.
kind of have to, like, I'm just going to, I'm not going to
like we work a lot on our
discredit
phones.
it.
Yes.
But
yes.
like, yeah, I mean, think about it. If you were like, we spend so much of our lives working, what if we didn't do that? Like, well, you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we can all be on our phones less. And I
agree.
think it's kind of a little bit like that. Well, if you stopped getting your latte every day, you'd be a millionaire.
Exactly.
So, like, you got to find the middle ground.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. But it reminded me that there is a large portion of that time on my phone that is spent doing things that are not necessarily productive.
Or not necessary.
No. So have you ever heard of a brick?
Explain it, because I want to say so, but now I'm not sure. Is it a separate phone?
No.
Okay.
Because I was actually thinking of getting that light phone.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, do I get this on the weekend? Like, oh, I'll go analog. No, I can't. I need my
can't.
camera. I love
can't.
taking pictures of my
Yeah.
kids all day. That's what I do. I
know.
take pictures and then I look at them at night. And then when I want my space, I'm looking at pictures of them again. So, that's another can of worms. But so there's this thing called a brick, and essentially you have to scan yourself in and out of accessing specific apps on your phone. So I've decided on the weekend I scan my phone to it.
And it's like a physical thing?
It's a physical thing. So the only way to get back into your apps is you have to go back to wherever it is. So let's say I have it on my refrigerator.
Got it.
I scan myself out of Instagram and let's say like Substack or whatever else
Yeah.
I'm trying to like not do. I don't know. I like Substack. I feel like it.
It's not pictures.
It's not pictures. It's like more substantive.
It's how I feel about Threads.
Yeah,
I really like
Threads.
Threads,
I'm like,
quite
there's something
honestly,
there.
lately.
I gotta get on Threads.
It's a new thing for me, and I'm into it.
Oh God.
I
Well,
just
now I'm
can't
gonna
be on
dabble.
X. Yeah.
But at any rate, you select the apps that you want to be locked out
Okay.
of. You scan out, and then if you're out through the day and you want to try and get into Instagram because your thumb can't help itself,
Right.
You're locked out. And it's actually
Wow.
what was interesting for me is I started doing it over winter break. Because I wanted to be more present with my kids and, things were a little slower with work. And I was like, oh, great, this is my opportunity to really like focus on my presence. And it was like Pavlov's dog. Like I retrained myself and now I don't even use the brick. I just have this new boundary and muscle built
buying one
to
tonight.
resist. It's amazing. Like I'll share mine if someone wants to borrow it. Like you only need it for like a
I
couple
need
weeks to
get one.
retrain yourself.
Because I've used Focus Lock, which is like the same thing, but,
you can get
I
out of
override it.
And then you override
I'm an
it.
addict.
This, you can't get out. You're stuck until you literally
Okay,
drive your butt home to wherever your brick is.
Getting it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, I want to chat about the company Perelell.
Yes,
because
yes.
we've gone over everything else, but
Sure.
obviously I'm a fan of the brand.
Thank you.
Love it.
I could not. I saw like a reel where you're using our protein powder.
I
was
use
like,
it
oh my
every
God,
morning.
It's so
every
good.
morning. Like I do these like morning vlogs every once in a while when I feel up for recording. It really depends.
No, I love them. They're
And
great.
every single one, you see me making this big ass smoothie, and I'm always putting Perelell in it.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it's
you.
funny because the protein powder, incredible.
Yes.
What I almost love more, because I think it really sets you guys apart, is in terms of the vitamin packs.
Yes.
How there are different packs for different stages.
Yeah.
Because I think twofold. One, it's the bio-individuality of it all. It's like it's not one size fits all.
Yes.
We don't need the same vitamins postpartum as we do in our first trimester of pregnancy.
Exactly.
So incredible.
Thank
and
you.
B, I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine where, and I think I talked about this on like a sponsored set of stories that we did together, but it was true because I've had this conversation with many. I'll like sometimes look at my supplements and be like, I know I should take you.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to.
I know.
I don't know why I do it.
Well, it's annoying.
I don't know
have
why
a lot
I
of
do
time.
it. But the fact that, and like my husband has this like little like supplement kit, and he like on Sundays like organizes his days, and he basically creates his own packs.
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's what I used to do.
And I noticed that he's taking his every night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is it because that's just easier?
Yeah.
Because then I'm not opening all my different bottles of like, okay, my sertraline, my, whatever it is.
Completely.
And so I love that you do that legwork that my husband's doing for himself.
Well, that was
and
it.
it's just there.
We're too busy.
Too busy.
Babe is busy. We don't have time to be pill sorting. Also, I don't have time to be the amount of time that my co-founders and I spent researching, going down
Right.
rabbit holes. Okay, if I'm going to take this, can I take that? Does it all vibe together? Am I going to hurt my liver? Like, what do I need for this stage? It's like, okay, we have Uber. We have like everything at our fingertips. Like, why is taking care of ourselves so difficult? And to us, it was like not only creating a superior product, but a better experience. An experience that meets the needs of our busy lives. And that was the only solve. We're like, because she needs to be able to grab it and go do whatever the heck she needs to do. Whether it's like she remembers to take it with her lunch or take it before bed, like this little thing is there. And it's kind of like fun to like rip it open and take it, and easy and simple. So yeah, the experience was a big part of us when we were thinking about how do we solve this? How do we create a product that is targeted and acknowledges the fact that our bodies are not in a static place. They're our hormones are constantly shifting. Our health goals might be different. So how do you optimize your health and your nutrients for that? And so, of course, when we had the light bulb moment, it was very much a humbling moment as well, because my co-founder Tori and I sat there and looked at each other and kind of chuckled, because she's also a mom and a businesswoman. I'm like, well, what do we know? We're not doctors. Like, we have great care teams, but we don't know anything. Like, someone probably has already done this. Yeah. No one did it. And as we started to ask around, we went to a very prominent physician here in the U.S. She's at one of the top medical schools, one of the top hospitals here in New York. And we said, we have this idea. What if we created targeted vitamin routines for different hormonal life stages for women, but all of you doctors did it? Like, this is your idea, go do it. Yeah. We're like, no, you need to do it. And that was a wild moment. And we looked at each other and we were like, okay, game on. So we brought on a doctor as our co-founder and brought on a whole team of various physicians and researchers from different disciplines. Like, we have a reproductive endocrinologist. Right. She weighs in on, the mental health aspects of what women need throughout these different stages. We have maternal fetal medicine doctors, reproductive endocrinologists, functional medicine doctors, doulas even, and they all come together and they create a routine they can all agree on, which is hard. Very hard. Sure. And but ultimately we have some key principles about how much research and clinicals everything needs behind every ingredient. Also, we take into account their clinical experience. All these doctors are actively practicing and seeing patients every day, which is actually a really important nuance, because you want something that's created by them because they're seeing patients and they see the implications of what happens. So, for example,
they're in the weeds,
but they notice things that, other brands and other, other players in the category don't see. And I'll give you an example. So because they're seeing patients every day, they notice that, we've noticed that our patients that are taking high volumes of biotin are leading to misleading labs.
Interesting.
Might be misleading such that it might misdiagnose a thyroid condition or something else of that nature. So what do? We don't put biotin in any of our prenatals because that is a common occurrence that our physicians see in their clinical work. So there's all these little nuances that we've noticed and been able to pull from with our panel. We call them the Perelell panel. And they bring that into the formulation process. So it's not only just the latest research, but it's also their clinical insights.
Amazing.
How do we create a product that's truly tolerable? Yeah, we could put the max amount of this nutrient in there, but our customer's already eating healthy for the most part. So like, she should be getting some nutrients from her food. Like, supplementation is just that, a supplement. And then secondly, she couldn't even tolerate that nutrient if we put it in there at the full amount. She'd be, bowing to the porcelain gods all day. So like, it's really fascinating what we were able to glean from having these physicians that are working with patients every day and bringing that into formulation. So we created these packs. My co-founder Tori and I run the business day to day, and it's just been tremendous. I think people really saw that they wanted a more comprehensive product that really acknowledges the complexities of who we are and also just normalizes the experience of living in this body. Yeah. We created a product specifically for pregnancy loss that didn't exist. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this.
But many of my friends have.
But it is a wildly isolating experience. And there's something to be said about seeing a product on the shelf that acknowledges and normalizes what you're going through. Yeah. Even if it's PCOS, what have you. We've created all these solutions for these very specific female body experiences. And that's important.
And also, like, those people very much need that care.
Completely.
So not only are they not seeing it, but they're not being met with the care that they need.
or education. And I think that was a big thing, you know, when my co-founder and I were having our first babies, you know, there was a lot. First of all, everyone on social media is an armchair expert. How do you trust anything?
Yeah.
Even now, you know, it's really tough. You start to dig
so
in and you
hard.
realize, oh, this doctor that's trying to tell me about PCOS is an ER doctor that might not even have the background.
It's a chiropractor.
It's like, yeah, it's a chiropractor.
Literally.
Like, what's happening here? Literally. And so we thought, you know, with this team of doctors that do our formulation, can you guys all share what you know? Like, just share it for free on our blog. Like, give us the information, because at the time when we were having babies and researching, I would end up on a baby center forum where like anyone from anywhere was telling me how much, you know, CoQ10 and folate to be taking when I was trying to conceive. And I was like, this is bonkers.
Dude, I had like a full spreadsheet. This is sending me back to my first pregnancy. I had a full spreadsheet of, because that's how my brain operates, of like all of the top brands out there for prenatals, and then like I had a column for every single thing, and I was like inputting what they had, measuring.
You're our girl, because I had the same thing.
To be like, which one should I take? Like, it's exhausting, the mental load of it all.
It is.
Where do you see Perelell going? Like, what are your dreams for the brand? Are there products that you want to create that aren't out there yet that you can share? Like, what is next alongside of like building what you already have?
So we started out in prenatals. So we have a prenatal, which is our conception support pack for anyone who's thinking about or actively trying to get pregnant. Then we have packs for each individual trimester of pregnancy, a postpartum pack, and we've also created packs that are for anyone that's not in the motherhood track. So we actually have a pack called our cycle support pack. They're literally vitamins that sync with your menstrual cycle and adjust and optimize based on where you are in your cycle. So cycle syncing. We have a product for
that one. I didn't know that existed.
If you have PMS, if you have like pronounced PMS,
awful.
Oh, then like
I
needed this product.
I don't
because
do like supplement cycling, so
I'll send you a pack if you'd like to try it. We also have a product for perimenopause.
Great.
We have a general women's product that you can take if you're not, again, building a family, what have you. We have packs and products that are for other kind of more specific needs, like pregnancy loss or those that are dealing with PCOS. And so for us, it was really first about laying the foundation for a brand that could support women through every hormonal shift of their lives. And we've done a good job of establishing those products. I think, where do we go next? We continue digging deeper into our advocacy work. You know, we've been hyper involved in closing the women's health research gap and also making high quality nutrition more accessible in the US. We've donated over $3.5 million worth of product to women here in the United States to support their pregnancies, as well as research grants. And, you know, how do we scale this onto a global scale? How do we create a movement where women are empowered and feel good in their bodies and know how to support themselves? You know, our mission is to create a world with more healthy, supported women. So, you know, the next stop is, how do we go beyond our own borders and reach out to support others beyond the U.S.? So,
well, thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
And for coming on here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm such a fan.
Where can people best support you, the brand, all of the things?
Absolutely. So we're Perelell. We spell it in our own way, Perelel. So we're at perelellhealth.com. Same on Instagram. It's Alex Taylor on Instagram.
Great.
You can see me posting about my kids and women's health advocacy. So
everything will be in the show notes, and code Cameron will get you 20% off your first purchase.
Yes.
So thank you for being on here.
Thank you for having me.